My brother didn't recognize me when I picked him up as a rideshare driver, then mocked me for always giving him money. So at our parents' anniversary, I exposed his $47,000 gambling habit on a projector screen. He spiraled, stalked me, tried to get me fired, and ended up collapsing at a casino before rehab. One evening, I collected my brother and an unfamiliar passenger from the casino. I did not realize it was him until he uttered a derogatory remark about my controlling nature. Marcus, my brother, and I had shared a close bond throughout our lives, but in recent years, his conduct had deteriorated significantly. I had been settling his financial obligations, providing him funds whenever he called with that pleading tone, asserting that this instance would be different. I had already exhausted my car savings, my vacation allowance, and even accessed my housing deposit. Occasionally, if these amounts proved insufficient, he would still request more, even when aware of my financial strain. I had a close confidant at work who consistently opposed the notion of constantly providing Marcus with money, particularly for my personal reserves. Consequently, Marcus disliked her, claiming she was alienating me from our relatives. Yet, whenever my friend cautioned me against facilitating his behavior, I would advocate for Marcus and offer him whatever I possessed, irrespective of the narrative he concocted. I would insist that kinship takes precedence. However, it appeared that principle was solely my own. Earlier that day, Marcus and I had a disagreement. He had been consuming alcohol once more. When I gently suggested he moderate his intake, he erupted. He brought up the repayment I had requested and began asserting I had become fixated on finances, that I had transformed, that I was no longer the sibling he had grown up with. I found this deeply unjust, as I had only inquired about reimbursement once in 3 years, and solely because my rent was due. Thus, I retorted, informing him I was weary of being his personal financial dispenser. That day, I went to work in a state of anger, but eventually, I composed myself. Reflecting on the entire incident, I felt remorseful for confronting him. I considered that perhaps I should not have mentioned the money at all. I then resolved to return home earlier that night and offer an apology, perhaps even propose assistance in locating a treatment program. Nevertheless, I decided to take one final ride before heading back. That particular journey, however, altered everything. I picked up 2 individuals outside the River Rock Casino. Prior to their arrival, I had received notifications that my credit card had reached its limit. When they entered, I did not bother to ascertain their identities. Furthermore, it was late. They were laughing boisterously, counting currency, and I was eager to drop them off. But then something captured my attention. I overheard one of them slur, then utter something to the effect of, "My overbearing sister believes I have an issue. She will provide me with more money, though. She always does." I did not turn, merely utilized the car's front mirror to confirm. And there he was, my brother Marcus. My heart skipped a beat. I nearly brought the vehicle to a halt. But then I pondered, if I did, what would I communicate to him? So, I simply continued driving until we reached their destination, another casino. He offered a gratuity without even a second glance. I drove home that night, utterly devastated, and immediately telephoned my best friend. She came rushing to my aid the moment I called. I was so shattered, and she offered solace. She did not utter, "I warned you," or "I told you so." She simply embraced me as I wept, and I felt comprehended for the first time in years. That was when I realized I had been enabling the wrong individual all this time. The following day was our parents' anniversary celebration. Marcus had initially pledged to remain sober for the event, where all family members and their acquaintances would be present, so that commitment still stood. I simply incorporated some additional arrangements, ones they certainly did not anticipate. Everything proceeded as planned, and I waited until everyone was assembled before making my declaration. I imagined everyone presumed I would deliver a discourse on the marvel of our parents' union, and so forth. I was indeed delivering a speech, but certainly not solely concerning them. I informed everyone the address concerned the significance of veracity within kinship and offered considerable commendation to my parents. Marcus was smirking, likely already inebriated, but his expression vanished when I requested everyone to observe the display behind me. There on the screen was a comprehensive ledger I had compiled the previous night. Every loan, every urgent disbursement, every broken promise of repayment. 3 years of dealings totaling $47,000. The room fell silent. Utensils ceased movement. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus sprang from his seat so rapidly it overturned. His countenance shifted from perplexity to fury in moments. He stumbled towards me, but our cousin Jake intervened. I continued speaking, my voice steady despite my trembling hands. I elucidated how I had discovered Marcus at the casino the previous night, how he had insulted me while planning to solicit additional funds. How I had been chauffeuring him and his gambling companion in my rideshare vehicle, and they had not even recognized me. My father slowly rose, his face pallid. He gazed between Marcus and me, then at the screen displaying transaction after transaction, date after date, fabrication after fabrication. The retirement party loan that funded poker tables, the medical emergency that financed a weekend in Vegas, the car repair money that disappeared into slot machines. Marcus attempted to speak, but only incoherent accusations emerged. He gestured at me, then at my best friend who had just arrived, asserting we had conspired against him, that we were envious of his prosperity. What prosperity? The room knew better. Everyone had witnessed his decline, but no one knew the extent until now. My mother began weeping, not the gentle tears of disappointment, but deep, body-shaking sobs. My father placed his arm around her, but his gaze remained fixed on Marcus. The extended family began murmuring, some defending Marcus out of shock, others nodding as details coalesced. Uncle Tony mentioned the money Marcus had borrowed from him. Aunt Sarah brought up the family reunion funds that had gone missing. Marcus's girlfriend, whom none of us knew he had brought, discreetly exited through the back door. A sagacious woman. The rest of us were not so fortunate. We had to confront this directly. I deactivated the presentation and faced my family. I informed them I was not requesting the money back. I was not attempting to humiliate anyone. I simply could not continue enabling someone who perceived me as nothing more than an automated teller machine. Someone who had smiled to my face while uttering dreadful epithets behind my back. Marcus lunged again, but this time my father stepped forward. He did not physically touch Marcus, merely stood there, a formidable barrier of disappointment. He instructed Marcus to depart. The celebration was now concluded, but Marcus was not finished. He seized a champagne bottle from the table, not to drink, but to gesticulate wildly as he railed. He accused me of ruining the family, of being self-centered, of abandoning him when he needed me most. The irony was not lost on anyone present. My best friend moved to stand beside me. She did not utter a word, simply stood there, resolute and supportive. Marcus observed this and redirected his fury towards her, blaming her for corrupting my perception of him. She did not flinch. She had heard it all previously. The ensuing minutes were chaotic. Family members chose allegiances. Some believed I had gone too far, publicizing private family matters. Others, particularly those who had also been wronged by Marcus, supported my actions. My parents stood motionless, torn between their offspring. Marcus finally stormed out, but not before sweeping his arm across the gift table, sending wrapped presents crashing to the floor. He bellowed that I would regret this, that I had destroyed our family, that I would pay for humiliating him. After his departure, the room slowly emptied. Family members whispered among themselves as they collected their belongings. Some embraced me, others avoided eye contact. My parents remained silent, simply commencing the cleanup of the disarray. I assisted them in silence. My best friend also remained, quietly gathering scattered gift wrap and broken glass. When we finished, my mother finally spoke. She inquired why I had not approached them sooner, why I had borne this burden alone. I could not respond. How could I explain that I had wished to shield them? That I had hoped Marcus would change, that I had been so deeply entrenched in the pattern I could not discern a way out until the previous night. My father sank heavily into a chair. He appeared older than his years. He requested details concerning the casino incident. I recounted everything. The credit card notifications, the recognition in the mirror, the manner in which Marcus had jested about manipulating me. My mother's tears began anew. She blamed herself for her lack of foresight, for not safeguarding me from my own brother. I assured her it was not her fault. Marcus had made his own determination. We remained there as the sun set, the anniversary cake untouched, the celebration marred. But somehow I felt unburdened. The secret was revealed. The enabling could cease. The restoration could commence. My best friend drove me home. I was too emotionally depleted to operate a vehicle. She inquired about my well-being. I was not, but I would be. For the first time in years, I had prioritized myself over Marcus's manipulation. That night, my phone was inundated with messages. Marcus had taken to social media, portraying me as the antagonist who had fractured our family. He posted old childhood photographs of us, composing captions about how money had corrupted me, how I had become callous and heartless. Some family members believed him. They commented their support, labeling me ungrateful and self-centered. Others defended me, sharing their own accounts of Marcus's falsehoods and deception. The familial schism deepened with every post and comment. My best friend remained overnight. She assisted me in blocking Marcus across all platforms and made me promise not to check his social media. She reminded me that I had acted appropriately, that enabling him would have merely prolonged everyone's distress. The following morning, my mother telephoned. She and my father had been awake all night conversing. They had reviewed their own financial records and uncovered additional missing funds. Small sums here and there, birthday cash that disappeared, emergency reserves that vanished. They had been oblivious to it. Or perhaps they had chosen not to perceive it. She inquired if I would visit. They wished to converse properly without the tumult of the party. I consented, though my stomach churned at the prospect. My best friend offered to accompany me, but I needed to face this alone. The drive to my parents' residence felt more protracted than usual, each traffic signal affording me excessive time to contemplate what awaited me. When I pulled into their driveway, I noticed Marcus's vehicle was absent, which brought both relief and apprehension. My parents sat at the kitchen table with documents scattered everywhere, bank statements, credit card invoices, withdrawal slips. My mother's eyes were swollen from weeping, and my father had that distant expression he adopted when processing difficult information. They had been assembling their own financial puzzle, and the emerging image was not pleasant. I sat down opposite them, and my mother immediately reached for my hand. Her touch was tender, yet trembling. My father cleared his throat and commenced explaining what they had uncovered. Over the past 2 years, approximately $15,000 had disappeared from their accounts. Small withdrawals here and there, cash pilfered from my mother's purse, checks written to Marcus that they had forgotten. The pattern was evident once they sought it. My mother produced a notebook where she had been tracking things. Marcus had borrowed money for car insurance that he had allowed to lapse. He had taken cash for groceries, but spent it elsewhere. He had even persuaded them to pay for a certification course he never attended. Each incident seemed justifiable at the time, but collectively they depicted a disturbing scenario. My father's voice cracked as he apologized for not crediting my account sooner. He admitted they had enabled Marcus as well, fabricating excuses for his conduct, attributing it to stress or misfortune rather than addiction. They had wished to believe their son would rectify matters, just as I had. We spent hours reviewing everything. I presented them with my complete records, not merely the summary from the party. My mother gasped at some of the sums, especially the $5,000 I had given Marcus for what he claimed was urgent dental work. The transition from public disorder to private revelation feels deliberate. The way the parents shift from stunned paralysis during the celebration to actively investigating their own losses demonstrates a realistic progression of trauma processing. Marcus posting childhood photographs on social media while labeling his sister heartless is such a specific manipulative tactic. My father's jaw tightened when he observed the pattern of requests escalating around significant holidays and family gatherings. The conversation shifted to the subsequent course of action. My parents were torn between strict discipline and continued assistance. My mother worried about Marcus becoming homeless or worse. My father appeared more resolute, stating that enabling had not benefited anyone. I recounted my experience from the casino, how Marcus had laughed about manipulating me, and watched their faces contort with each detail. My phone vibrated incessantly during our discussion. Messages from family members, some supportive, others critical. My mother had been receiving similar messages, and the strain was evident on her face. The familial schism was impacting everyone, with cousins taking sides and aunts calling to either admonish or endorse. We decided to dine together, attempting normalcy amidst the turmoil. My mother cooked mechanically, performing familiar actions while her thoughts were clearly elsewhere. My father set the table with the fine china, perhaps attempting to salvage something from their ruined anniversary. The meal was quiet, punctuated only by the clinking of silverware and my phone's persistent buzzing. After dinner, my father suggested we inspect Marcus's old room. He had relocated years ago, but still utilized it for storage. What we discovered there astonished even me. Boxes of unopened items he had acquired with borrowed money. Expensive electronics still in their packaging. Designer apparel with tags affixed. Evidence of shopping sprees financed by familial generosity while he feigned destitution. My mother sank on a Marcus's old bed, clutching a receipt for a $2,000 timepiece. The date corresponded to when he had borrowed money from them for rent. My father's expression darkened as he unearthed more receipts, credit card statements displaying cash advances, even pawn shop slips for items we had given him as gifts. The doorbell interrupted our discovery. Through the window, I observed several family members' vehicles. Uncle Tony, Aunt Sarah, and 3 cousins had arrived unannounced. My stomach plummeted, anticipating confrontation, but my father squared his shoulders and went to answer. The group entered the living room, their faces grave. Uncle Tony spoke first, explaining they had been comparing notes since the party. Between them, Marcus owed nearly $20,000. They had come to offer support and share their own narratives of manipulation. Aunt Sarah had brought her own documentation. Marcus had persuaded her to invest in a business venture that never materialized. Cousin Jake revealed Marcus had pilfered his credit card information and incurred charges before Jake noticed. Another cousin admitted to covering for Marcus at work multiple times, only to be betrayed when Marcus slandered him to their superior. The accounts flowed forth, each one augmenting the pattern. Marcus's gambling was not solely affecting immediate family. He had extended his web of deceit throughout our broader network. The room became heavy with shared acknowledgement of how profoundly we had all been deceived. My phone rang, displaying Marcus's number. Everyone fell silent as I deliberated answering. My father nodded encouragingly, so I activated the speakerphone. Marcus's voice filled the room, alternating between rage and desperation. He demanded I remove my social media posts, defending myself. He threatened to appear at my workplace to make my existence miserable until I publicly apologized. The family listened in stunned silence as Marcus ranted. His words became increasingly hostile, calling me names that made my mother flinch. When he began threatening my best friend, stating he knew her residence, Uncle Tony seized the phone and instructed Marcus to never contact any of us again. The line went dead. The group remained late into the evening, formulating a strategy. We would all block Marcus on social media and phones. Anyone he owed money to would formally document it. Most importantly, no one would provide him with another penny. The unified front felt potent, but I worried about those family members not present who might still succumb to Marcus's manipulation. My best friend texted, checking on me. I stepped outside to call her, requiring her calming presence, even over the phone. She listened as I recounted the evening's revelations, offering support without judgment. She mentioned Marcus had been calling her workplace, attempting to have her dismissed by lodging false complaints. Her employer had not taken him seriously, but it demonstrated his desperation. Back inside, the family meeting was concluding. Embraces were exchanged, pledges of support made. My parents appeared exhausted, but somehow more resilient. The truth, painful as it was, had brought clarity. Uncle Tony offered to replace the locks on my parents' residence since Marcus possessed keys. My father accepted, finally acknowledging the security risk his son presented. After everyone departed, I assisted my parents in tidying up. We worked in companionable silence, processing the evening's intensity. My mother occasionally touched my shoulder, wordless support that meant everything. My father took out the refuse and stood in the driveway for an extended period, gazing at the celestial bodies. I stayed overnight, sleeping in my childhood room. The familiar surroundings felt altered now, tainted by the awareness of how Marcus had exploited our family's trust. Through the thin walls, I overheard my parents conversing late into the night, their voices a low murmur of shared sorrow and resolve. Morning presented new obstacles. I awoke to dozens of messages from colleagues. Marcus had appeared at my workplace, causing a commotion in the parking lot. Security had escorted him away, but not before he had screamed accusations about me to anyone who would listen. My manager had left a voicemail, expressing concern and requesting me to call. Over breakfast, I explained the situation to my parents. My mother's face paled at the thought of Marcus harassing me at work. My father's jaw set in determination. He declared he would seek a restraining order if necessary, finally accepting that his son's conduct had crossed into hazardous territory. I telephoned my manager from my parents' kitchen. She was understanding but resolute. Marcus could not return to the property. She offered me a few days off to manage the situation, which I gratefully accepted. My professional standing remained intact, but I worried about the gossip that would undoubtedly circulate. My best friend arrived shortly thereafter, having taken the day off to support me. She brought coffee and a resolute demeanor. Together, we strategized about safeguarding ourselves from Marcus's escalating behavior. She had already apprised her building security about him and installed a doorbell camera. The four of us spent the morning taking practical measures. We changed my parents' locks, installed security cameras, and updated passwords on all financial accounts. My father contacted a legal professional regarding formal cease and desist letters. My mother, though heartbroken, participated fully, finally accepting that protecting ourselves from Marcus was essential. Around midday, my phone rang with an unrecognized number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Marcus's gambling acquaintance from the casino ride. He asserted Marcus owed dangerous individuals money and was utilizing my name as a reference. The caller warned me to be vigilant, then disconnected. My blood ran cold. I immediately shared this with everyone. My father telephoned the police to report the threat, though they stated little could be done without more concrete evidence. The officers suggested documenting everything and varying our routines for safety. The reality of Marcus's addiction's reach impacted us all profoundly. My best friend suggested I reside with her for a few days. My parents concurred, concerned about me being alone in my apartment. As we packed some of my belongings, I felt the weight of how dramatically life had transformed in just 48 hours. The brother I had protected for so long had become someone I needed protection from. That afternoon, we discovered Marcus had been active online. He had created counterfeit social media accounts to perpetuate his harassment. The posts were increasingly erratic, accusing me of misappropriating his funds, of alienating the family against him, of ruining his life. Some extended family members who had not attended the meeting were believing his falsehoods, sending me accusatory messages. My best friend took charge of documenting everything for potential legal action: screenshots, recordings, witness statements. She approached it like the project manager she was, creating a comprehensive dossier of Marcus's escalating behavior. Her methodical approach helped me feel less overwhelmed by the chaos. My father telephoned with news that made my stomach drop. Marcus had been to their bank attempting to access their accounts. The new security measures had thwarted him, but the attempt demonstrated his desperation. The bank manager had provided security footage, augmenting our accumulating evidence file. That evening at my best friend's apartment, I finally broke down. The stress, apprehension, and sorrow overwhelmed me. She held me as I sobbed, grieving the brother I had lost to addiction. The Marcus terrorizing us now bore no resemblance to the boy who taught me to ride a bicycle, who defended me from playground bullies. She prepared dinner while I composed myself. Over pasta, we discussed the surreal turn of events. Neither of us had imagined that confronting Marcus would trigger such an extreme reaction. Yet, she reminded me that his response proved how necessary the intervention had been. My phone vibrated with a message from a cousin who had initially supported Marcus. She apologized, explaining that Marcus had requested money from her that morning, employing the same untruths he told me. When she had refused, citing the family meeting, he had become verbally abusive. Another family member recognized the truth. The ensuing days blurred together. Marcus's attempts at contact escalated. He appeared at my parents' residence at 3 a.m, pounding on the door until neighbors summoned the police. He was intoxicated and belligerent, but the officers could only compel him to leave since he had not violated any statutes. My mother telephoned me weeping after that incident. The anguish in her voice shattered my heart. She repeatedly questioned where her sweet boy had gone, how addiction had transformed him so completely. I had no answers, only shared grief for the brother and son we had lost. At work, the situation remained strained, though my colleagues were supportive. Marcus's scene had created an uncomfortable atmosphere. Some individuals regarded me with pity, others with curiosity. I immersed myself in my projects, grateful for the diversion, but always vigilant for Marcus's potential return. My best friend accompanied me everywhere, a protective presence I deeply appreciated. She had rearranged her schedule to ensure I was never alone. Her apartment became our stronghold, where we monitored security cameras and documented Marcus's continued harassment. The family group chat my uncle had established became a lifeline. Members shared Marcus sightings, alerting others when he had been observed near their homes or workplaces. The network that had once enabled him now protected each other from him. It was sadly ironic. One afternoon, my mother texted urgently. Marcus had convinced a distant relative to provide him lodging, fabricating a tale of familial persecution. This relative, unaware of the complete situation, had believed him. My parents and uncle were proceeding to their location to share the documentation, hoping to prevent another family member from being exploited. The confrontation did not go well. The relative accused us of ganging up on Marcus, of being callous towards someone clearly struggling. Despite witnessing evidence of his falsehoods and manipulation, they insisted on affording him an opportunity. The familial schism deepened, with some members severing contact over the disagreement. That evening, Marcus utilized his new base of operations to escalate further. The Gambling Associates warning call is a clever way to illustrate how Marcus's problem extends beyond immediate family into genuinely perilous territory. He created a blog detailing his rendition of events, specifically naming me as the architect of his downfall. He posted photographs from our childhood, composing elaborate fictions about how I had always been envious of him. The fabrications were so intricate, so persuasive that even I almost questioned if I was misremembering our past. My best friend discovered the blog first, immediately capturing screenshots of everything before Marcus could erase evidence. She highlighted inconsistencies in his narratives, dates that did not align, claims that contradicted each other. Her analytical mind helped me discern the desperate untruths beneath the emotional manipulation. The stress was affecting everyone. My father developed sleeplessness, spending nights researching addiction and enabling. My mother lost weight, barely eating as she grappled with culpability and sorrow. I found myself startled by shadows, constantly checking locks and security cameras. During this period, an unexpected ally emerged. Marcus's former girlfriend, the one who had prudently departed the anniversary party, contacted me. She had dated him for 6 months and possessed accounts that corroborated our experiences. She had caught him stealing from her, lying about the whereabouts of money, disappearing for days to gamble. She shared text messages where Marcus had boasted about specifically manipulating me. The words stung, witnessing and writing how he had perceived my affection as a vulnerability to exploit, but her evidence fortified our case, demonstrating his pattern extended beyond family. My manager telephoned with concerning news. Marcus had been contacting our clients, claiming to be my business associate and attempting to reroute payments. Fortunately, the clients had verified with the company first, but the attempted fraud added another layer to our legal documentation. My employment, once a sanctuary, now felt tainted by his reach. The family meeting reconvened at my parents' residence, this time with more members present. The evidence had accumulated to undeniable levels. Even those who had initially defended Marcus could not dispute the documented harassment, the attempted fraud, the escalating threats. The atmosphere was somber as we deliberated next steps. A legal professional uncle recommended joined us to elucidate our alternatives. Restraining orders were feasible, but necessitated court appearances. Cease and desist letters might assist, but were not legally binding. The process seemed overwhelming, but the group united, dividing tasks and sharing expenses. During the meeting, Marcus telephoned my father's phone repeatedly. We allowed it to go to voicemail, then listened together to increasingly incoherent messages. He alternated between tearful apologies and vicious threats, sometimes within the same sentence. The addiction had entirely consumed him. That night, I returned to my own apartment for the first time in a week. My best friend insisted on remaining overnight, unwilling to leave me alone. We ordered takeout and attempted to watch a film, seeking normalcy amidst the turmoil, but both of us continuously checked the security application, unable to fully relax. Around midnight, the motion sensors activated. Marcus stood outside my building, swaying slightly, gazing up at my windows. We observed through the camera as he paced, occasionally shouting my name. My best friend telephoned the police while I resisted the urge to confront him myself. The officers arrived swiftly, recognizing the address from previous calls. They conversed with Marcus, who insisted he merely wished to speak to his sister. When they threatened to arrest him for trespassing, he finally departed, but not before screaming that this was not over. The officers took a report, adding to our ever-growing file. Sleep eluded me that night. Every sound made me tense, wondering if Marcus had returned. My best friend also remained awake, both of us feigning sleep for the other's benefit. The weight of the situation pressed down, making it difficult to breathe. Morning brought a small respite. Marcus had been apprehended for public intoxication and disorderly conduct at another casino. He had caused a scene when denied further gambling, destroying property in his rage. The charges were not severe, but it meant a few hours of tranquility while he was processed. My parents utilized the time to meet with a counselor specializing in family addiction issues. They returned with resources and a clearer comprehension of enabling versus supporting. The counselor had validated their decision to sever ties with Marcus, explaining that continued financial assistance would only fuel his addiction. I returned to work, attempting to salvage my professional standing. My colleagues were kind but cautious, clearly uncomfortable with the drama that had infiltrated our workplace. I concentrated on my projects, grateful when anyone treated me normally instead of like a casualty. That afternoon, my best friend texted urgently. Marcus had been released and was posting again, this time with photographs of my apartment building and workplace. The implicit menace was clear. She had already notified building security and was coordinating with my manager regarding workplace safety measures. The family's legal counsel called with mixed news. We possessed sufficient evidence for restraining orders, but the process would require time. In the interim, he recommended varying routines, avoiding solitude, and continuing to document everything. The legal system moved slowly while Marcus's harassment accelerated. My mother broke down during our evening call. She had encountered old acquaintances who had seen Marcus's posts and inquired if I had truly stolen from him. The public nature of his falsehoods deeply wounded her, tarnishing our family's reputation within the community. I attempted to console her, but my own distress made it challenging. The following morning arrived with an unsettling development. Marcus had somehow accessed an old joint bank account we had forgotten to close. He had withdrawn the few $100s remaining, but more concerning was that he now possessed my current address from the bank records. The violation of privacy sent shivers through me. My best friend took charge once more, assisting me in closing every forgotten account, updating all security questions, and implementing two-factor authentication wherever feasible. Her protective fury on my behalf deeply moved me. She had become my anchor in the tempest Marcus had generated. The pattern became evident over the next week. Marcus would attempt something novel each day, compelling us to adapt our defenses. He appeared at my best friend's gym, creating a scene until management prohibited him. He telephoned my elderly neighbor, feigning concern about my mental health. He even contacted my former college roommate, fabricating tales of familial abuse. Each attempt failed, but the exhaustion accumulated. My best friend and I developed a routine of checking security footage, documenting incidents, and updating our expanding evidence file. The lawyer assured us the restraining order paperwork was progressing, but bureaucracy moved at its own pace. My parents struggled with their own challenges. Marcus had been telephoning extended family members, particularly those who had not attended our meetings. He had convinced an elderly aunt to wire him money for supposed medical expenses. When she discovered the deception, her disappointment cut deeper than anger. Another family relationship damaged by his manipulation. The workplace situation evolved when my manager implemented new security protocols. Badge access became compulsory. Visitor logs were scrutinized, and security received Marcus's photograph. My colleagues adapted, though some still whispered when I passed. Professional relationships, once effortless, now carried an undercurrent of caution. One morning, I discovered Marcus had been impersonating me online. He had created email accounts with variations of my name, sending messages to distant relatives soliciting loans. The sophistication surprised me. Each email meticulously crafted to sound authentic. Only minor details, phrases I would never employ, revealed the deception. My best friend helped me dispatch clarification emails to everyone in my contact list. We spent hours composing messages, explaining the situation without oversharing. Some relatives responded with understanding, others with perplexity. The damage to my reputation spread like ripples in water. Uncle Tony telephoned with disturbing news. Marcus had been observed at pawn shops throughout the city, vending items we suspected were stolen from family members. A cousin's missing timepiece, my mother's jewelry that vanished months ago, even tools from my father's garage. The evidence mounted, but proving ownership remained arduous. My parents decided to conduct a thorough inventory of their possessions. The process revealed more missing items than anticipated. Photo albums, electronics, even sentimental objects devoid of monetary value. Each discovery deepened their sorrow. Their son had not merely stolen money. He had taken fragments of their history. The cease and desist letter was finally prepared. My father insisted on delivering it personally, accompanied by Uncle Tony for safety. They located Marcus at the relative's residence where he had been staying. The confrontation was brief but intense. Marcus tore up the letter, but the legal requirement was met. We had officially cautioned him. That night, the harassment intensified. My phone rang incessantly from unknown numbers. When I answered, silence or heavy breathing greeted me. Text messages flooded in from burner phones, alternating between pleas and threats. My best friend helped me change my number. A simple action that felt like defeat. Work became my refuge, though concentration proved difficult. I immersed myself in projects, finding solace in spreadsheets and deadlines. My manager quietly adjusted my responsibilities, ensuring I could work from home when necessary. The accommodation, unspoken but understood, helped immensely. Marcus's next maneuver caught us off guard. He appeared at my parents' church during Sunday service, making a tearful public appeal for forgiveness. The congregation, unaware of the full narrative, watched in confusion as he portrayed himself as a prodigal son seeking redemption. My parents sat frozen, caught between compassion and reality. The pastor, discerning of manipulation, gently guided Marcus outside. My parents followed along with several church elders who had known our family for years. The ensuing conversation was firm but benevolent. Marcus was welcome to seek assistance, but not to exploit the church for manipulation. He departed angrily. Another bond severed. My mother telephoned me afterward, her voice trembling. The public spectacle had mortified her, but worse was witnessing Marcus weaponize faith. She had always found comfort in church, and now even that felt sullied. I spent the afternoon with her, finding no words adequate for such anguish. The following week brought a breakthrough. Marcus's gambling acquaintance, the one from the casino ride, reached out again. This time, he wished to meet. Against my better judgment, but with my best friend accompanying me, I consented. We met in a public cafe, remaining near the exit. The man appeared disheveled, clearly grappling with his own afflictions. He explained that Marcus owed significant sums to several individuals, not dangerous criminals, but other gamblers and loan sharks operating in the illicit fringes of legality. He had come to warn me that Marcus was planning something desperate, though he did not know what. I thanked him for the warning and relayed the information to our family network. Everyone heightened their vigilance. Security cameras were checked more frequently. Routines varied more drastically. The constant state of alert exhausted everyone. But we had no alternative. 2 days later, Marcus made his move. He appeared at my parents' residence while they were at a doctor's appointment, utilizing his old key that we had somehow overlooked. Security footage showed him entering confidently, emerging 20 minutes later with boxes. My parents returned to find their emergency cash gone, important documents missing, and family photographs removed from frames. The gambling associate's warning generates genuine suspense because we are unaware of Marcus's intentions. And then the narrator delivers with that home invasion scene. The violation devastated them. My father, typically stoic, sat on their porch steps with his head in his hands. My mother walked through each room, cataloging what was taken, what was disturbed. The locks were changed immediately, but the sense of security was irrevocably shattered. I took the remainder of the week off work, assisting my parents in cleaning and reorganizing. We discovered Marcus had been thorough, taking anything potentially valuable or useful for identity theft. Bank statements, tax returns, even their social security cards. The cleanup involved not just physical items, but securing their financial identities. My best friend coordinated with our tech-savvy cousin to implement identity monitoring for my parents. Credit freezes were placed, passwords changed again, and new accounts opened to replace potentially compromised ones. The process took days, each step a reminder of betrayal. Marcus's desperation became increasingly apparent. Family members reported seeing him at various locations looking disheveled, arguing with people, being escorted from establishments. The man who had once charmed everyone now consumed relationships like wildfire. His social media posts became more erratic, the falsehoods more transparent. Then came the call that altered everything. A hospital emergency room contacted my parents as Marcus's emergency contacts. He had been admitted after collapsing at a casino, severely dehydrated and malnourished. Despite everything, my parents rushed to the hospital, their affection for their son overpowering their pain. I met them there along with my best friend who refused to let me face this alone. Marcus lay in the hospital bed looking smaller than I had ever seen him. The months of addiction had taken their toll. His body displayed the cost of his choices in ways his lies could not conceal. The doctor explained Marcus's condition candidly beyond the immediate health crisis. His body exhibited signs of severe addiction-related stress. He required treatment. Genuine treatment, not merely medical stabilization. The ensuing conversation was clinical, discussing options and insurance coverage rather than emotions. Marcus awoke while we were there. For a moment, I saw my brother, not the addict who terrorized us. But the moment passed swiftly. He immediately began making demands, blaming us for his condition, claiming we had driven him to this point. The manipulation persisted, even from a hospital bed. My parents made their decision with remarkable clarity. They would ensure he received medical care, but would not enable him further. They provided insurance information, but did not stay. They signed necessary paperwork, but did not engage with his emotional manipulation. Their boundaries, hard-won through pain, remained firm. The social worker presented treatment options. A rehabilitation facility had space available. Insurance would cover partial costs. Marcus initially refused, then negotiated, then raged, but confronted with the alternative of discharge to the streets, he eventually agreed. The admission process commenced immediately. I observed my parents during this process. They moved mechanically, making necessary decisions without emotional investment. The son they had loved existed somewhere beneath the addiction, but they could not reach him. They could only provide this opportunity and step back. The family meeting that evening was subdued. Everyone gathered at my parents' residence, sharing a quiet meal. No one spoke of triumph or defeat. Marcus would enter treatment the next morning. A 30-day program with potential extension. What transpired thereafter depended entirely on him. My best friend remained close throughout the evening. Her presence a constant comfort. She had endured this storm beside me, never faltering. As family members departed, she helped clean up, maintaining the normal rhythms that kept us grounded. The treatment facility telephoned the next morning, confirming Marcus's admission. He had been assigned a counselor, begun medical detoxification, and would have no external contact for 2 weeks. The enforced separation brought relief mingled with apprehension. At least we knew his whereabouts. Work welcomed me back with careful normalcy. Projects awaited, deadlines loomed, and routine beckoned. I found comfort in the predictability. The problems with solutions, the conflicts with resolutions. My professional life, once imperiled by Marcus's chaos, slowly stabilized. 2 weeks later, the facility permitted a family session. My parents attended alone, returning with little to impart. Marcus was participating in treatment, but recovery remained uncertain. The counselor emphasized the arduous journey ahead. The statistics were sobering. They scheduled another session for the following week. Our family began establishing new rhythms. Sunday dinners resumed at my parents' residence, smaller, but warmer. The vacant chair was acknowledged, but not dwelled upon. Conversations flowed more easily without the constant apprehension about Marcus's next crisis. We were learning to exist without perpetual emergency. My best friend and I returned to our own routines. Movie nights replaced security footage reviews. Weekend plans no longer revolved around crisis management. The hypervigilance slowly receded, though we maintained basic precautions. Life gradually approached something resembling normal. The restraining order paperwork finally completed just as it became unnecessary. We filed it anyway. Insurance against future complications. The lawyer assured us it would remain in effect regardless of treatment outcomes. Protection through legal channels, not emotional barriers. A month passed. Marcus completed initial treatment and transitioned to outpatient care. He had found a sober living house, begun attending meetings, and started part-time employment. The reports were cautiously optimistic, though everyone understood the fragility of early recovery. My parents chose careful contact. Phone calls on scheduled days, boundaries clearly maintained. They supported his recovery without enabling, loved him without trusting. The balance required constant adjustment, but they were learning. I made my own determination. No contact while he rebuilt. The damage ran too deep for swift reconciliation. Perhaps someday if recovery held, if amends were genuine, but not now. The decision brought peace rather than guilt. Our family had endured, scarred, but intact. The enabling patterns broken, boundaries established, relationships redefined. We had learned costly lessons about affection versus enabling, support versus sacrifice. Most importantly, we had prioritized ourselves without losing compassion. My best friend remarked one evening how different I appeared. Stronger, she said, more assured in my choices. The observation surprised me, but reflection confirmed it. Surviving Marcus's manipulation had taught me my own value. The future remained uncertain. Recovery statistics were not encouraging, and we all knew Marcus might relapse. But we also knew we would not revert to old patterns. The family that emerged from this crisis was forever altered, hopefully for the better. I returned to saving for my house, slowly rebuilding what I had relinquished. The aspiration felt different now, earned rather than inherited. Each deposit represented a choice to invest in my future rather than facilitate someone else's destruction. Life continued, ordinary and precious. It is noteworthy that this did not conclude with Marcus being entirely recovered and the family reunited. Instead, it illustrates how genuine healing often entails accepting that some relationships may remain fractured.